When desperate assistant Sophia Mitchell finally finds the courage to quit her job with Billionaire CEO Ryan Blackstone. He makes her an offer that changes everything. Marry him for 2 years and he'll pay for her dying mother's cancer treatment. What starts as a cold business arrangement turns into a dangerous game of deception, betrayal, and unexpected feelings. But when Sophia discovers Ryan's true motives, she must decide between love and revenge in this emotionally charged tale of power, manipulation, and the price of trust. Some stories make your heart race and your mind spin. This is one of them. Secrets, betrayal, and a love that could either conquer all or shatter completely. Where are you watching from? Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for every shocking chapter. Let's begin. The resignation letter trembled in Sophia's hands as she stood in the marble lobby of Blackstone Industries, her heart hammering against her ribs. 40 floors. Above, Ryan Blackstone sat in his glass tower, probably not even noticing she'd been gone for 20 minutes instead of her usual 5-minute coffee runs. The morning sun sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor where her worn heels clicked nervously. She'd practiced this moment 100 times in her tiny bathroom mirror, but now the words felt foreign in her throat. 2 years of being invisible. 2 years of watching him spend more on lunch than she made in a week, while her mother's medical bills multiplied like a cancer of their own. The latest hospital statement crinkled in her bag, the red ink spelling out her desperation. $15,000 for the treatment that might save Grace Mitchell's life. Sophia pressed the elevator button with a shaking finger. The ride to the 40th floor felt like ascending to her own execution. Ryan's corner office commanded a view of the entire city, all glass and steel reflecting his empire. He sat behind his mahogany desk, dark hair perfectly styled, green eyes focused on his computer screen with the intensity of a predator tracking prey. His charcoal suit probably cost more than her rent. The Anderson report better be on my desk. In 10 minutes, he said without looking up, his voice carrying that familiar edge of impatience. I need you to reschedule my lunch meeting again. The words she'd rehearsed evaporated. Sophia pulled the letter from her bag, her fingers leaving damp prints on the envelope. I quit. Ryan's fingers paused over his keyboard. Slowly, he raised his head, those piercing green eyes finally seeing her for what felt like the first time in 2 years. Excuse me? I said I quit. Her voice gained strength with repetition. I'm tired of being treated like furniture. Tired of working 60 hours a week for poverty wages while you spend more on ties than I make in a month. She stepped forward and placed the resignation letter on his desk. The paper seemed to burn against the expensive wood. This is my official resignation. I'll work the standard 2 weeks notice if you want, but I'm done after that. Ryan stood. Slowly, his tall frame unfolding like a dark angel rising from judgment. For the first time since she'd known him, he actually looked at her. Really looked at her as if she'd materialized from thin air. You're serious? Dead serious? He walked around his desk, stopping close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. Close enough to see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried a strange intensity. What's your real reason for leaving? I told you the real reason. She lifted her chin, meeting his stare. My mother is dying. She needs treatment I can't afford on what you pay me. I need to find a job that actually pays enough to live on. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition? How much do you need? The question caught her off guard. What? Your mother's treatment? How much money do you need? Heat flooded her cheeks. That's not your problem. Answer the question. About $50,000, maybe more. The number felt impossible saying it out loud, like admitting to a crime. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, become softer somehow, more dangerous. What if I told you I could solve that problem? I'm not asking for charity. I'm not offering charity. He moved closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I'm offering you a job, a different kind of job. What are you talking about? Marry me? The words hung in the air between them like a loaded gun. Sophia stared at Ryan, certain she'd misheard, certain the stress of her mother's illness had finally snapped her mind. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "Marry me. For 2 years." His voice was steady, businesslike, as if he'd just offered her a promotion instead of the most insane proposition she'd ever heard. "I need a wife to close a business deal, and you need money for your mother's treatment. We can help each other." Her legs felt weak. She gripped the back of the nearest chair to steady herself. "You're insane, practical." Ryan walked to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. $100,000 up front for your mother's treatment. Another $50,000 at the end of each year of marriage, plus living expenses, health insurance, and $1 million settlement when we divorce after 2 years. The numbers made her dizzy. It was more money than she'd see in a lifetime of working as his assistant. "This is crazy. This is business." He sat on the edge of his desk, bringing himself closer to her eye level. "You'd have your own room, your own life. In public, we'd appear to be a happily married couple. In private, we'd be business partners." With a mutually beneficial arrangement, Sophia sank into the chair, her mind reeling. People don't actually do things like this. Rich people do things like this all the time. Marriage has been a business arrangement for centuries. We'd just be honest about it up front. His green eyes searched her face. "Think about it, Sophia. Your mother could get the best treatment available. You'd never have to worry about money again. All you have to do is wear a ring and attend some social events with me for 2 years. 2 years, then we get divorced. Quietly, you take your money and we both move on with our lives. No hard feelings, no complications." She stared at the resignation letter on his desk, now seeming as naive as a child's drawing. This morning, her biggest problem was finding a new job that paid enough to survive. Now she was being offered more money than she'd ever dreamed of in exchange for the most bizarre arrangement she'd ever heard. But as she sat there, watching Ryan's calculating expression, she realized she knew almost nothing about the man she'd worked for these past 2 years. What kind of business deal required a wife? What kind of man proposed marriage to his assistant like a stock transaction? "Why me?" she asked quietly. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the perfect businessman facade. "Because you're reliable. Because you won't complicate things with feelings or expectations. Because you need the money badly enough to say yes." The brutal honesty stung, but she appreciated it more than pretty lies. "What's the real reason? You need a wife?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, his jaw tightening. "There's a client, Harold Morrison. Old-fashioned type who believes married men are more stable, more trustworthy. He's worth $50 million to my company, but he won't sign with a bachelor." He ran a hand through his dark hair, messing up the perfect styling for the first time she'd ever seen. "I don't have time to date and fall in love. I need a wife, not a relationship." "So you picked the desperate employee. I picked someone who understands business." He stood up, towering over her again. "Someone who won't mistake this for something it's not." Sophia's phone buzzed in her bag. A text from the hospital billing department. Another reminder about her mother's overdue account, the treatment schedule that couldn't wait for love or fairy tales or normal life. "I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning. The Morrison meeting is next week, and if we're going to do this, we need to move fast." Ryan returned to his desk as if he'd just offered her overtime instead of marriage. "Oh, and Sophia, don't bother with the 2 weeks' notice. If you take the deal, you'll be too busy becoming Mrs. Ryan Blackstone to work as my assistant." Left his office, her head spinning. Sophia wondered if her life had just taken a turn toward salvation or toward the biggest mistake she'd ever make. But as she rode the elevator down 40 floors, one thought kept echoing in her mind. What secrets was Ryan Blackstone hiding behind those calculating green eyes? Sophia spent the night staring at her cracked ceiling, Ryan's impossible offer echoing in her mind like a broken record. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's pale face in the hospital bed, heard the doctor's gentle but firm voice explaining the urgency of the treatment schedule. At 3 a.m., she called Grace from her kitchen, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Honey, what's wrong? It's so late." "Mom, how are you feeling today?" Sophia's voice cracked despite her efforts to sound strong. "Oh, the treatment makes me so tired. But don't worry about me. How's work?" Sophia closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Her mother had worked 2 jobs to raise her alone after her father died, sacrificing everything for her daughter's future. Now Grace needed expensive treatment, and Sophia felt helpless to provide it. "Mom, about the hospital bills, don't you worry about those right now, sweetheart. We'll figure something out." But there was nothing to figure out. Sophia had already looked into loans, payment plans, everything. Her salary barely covered rent and basic expenses. She needed a miracle, or her mother might not survive. After hanging up, Sophia sat in her tiny kitchen, surrounded by bills and overdue notices, and made her decision. At exactly 8 a.m., she walked into Ryan's office without knocking. "I'll do it." Ryan looked up from his computer, his green eyes unreadable. "Just like that, just like that. But I have conditions." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, the first genuine expression she'd seen from him in 2 years. "I'm listening." "First, the money for my mother's treatment goes directly to the hospital today. Before we sign anything, done. Second, I want the contract in writing. Every detail, every expectation, every clause about what happens when this is over, of course. Third," she took a deep breath, "I want to know what I'm really getting. Into what's your connection to Harold Morrison? Why is this deal so important that you'd marry a stranger to get it?" Ryan's expression hardened. He stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection ghost-like against the city skyline. Morrison Industries controls the largest manufacturing network on the West Coast. Getting his account doesn't just mean $50 million in immediate revenue. It means access to his entire network of partners and suppliers. It could double my company's worth overnight. That's not what I'm asking, and you know it. He turned back to her, and for a moment, she saw something raw and unguarded in his eyes. "My father built this company from nothing. When he died 5 years ago, everyone expected me to fail. They're still waiting for me to fail." His jaw tightened. "Morrison is my chance to prove them all wrong. To prove I'm not just some spoiled rich kid playing with daddy's money. What happened to your father? Heart attack? Stress, they said, from trying to keep the company afloat during the recession?" Ryan's voice turned bitter. He died at his desk at 2 a.m., working on a deal that fell through anyway. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. The man standing before her wasn't the cold, calculating boss she thought she knew. He was someone carrying the weight of impossible expectations. Someone as desperate as she was, just in a different way. Is that what this is about? Proving yourself? Isn't that what everything's about? He walked back to his desk and pulled out a leather portfolio. The contract. "Everything we discussed yesterday, plus your additional terms. There's one more thing." "What?" "We'll need to sell this. To Morrison, to the media, to everyone. That means we need a believable love story. A narrative about how the powerful CEO fell for his loyal assistant." Heat flooded her cheeks. A fake love story. It's the kind of romance people want to believe in. Love conquering class differences, the secretary who tamed the ruthless businessman. His green eyes met hers. Can you handle that? She thought about her mother's medical bills, about the desperate phone calls from debt collectors, about the choice between groceries and utilities that had become her monthly routine. "I can handle anything for 2 years." Ryan slid the contract across his desk. "Then welcome to the family, future Mrs. Blackstone." As Sophia signed her name on the dotted line, sealing her fate with black ink, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was signing away more than just 2 years of her life. But when Ryan's phone rang with the hospital confirming her mother's payment, she knew she'd made the only choice she could live with. What she didn't know was that Ryan Blackstone had been planning this moment for weeks, and she was about to discover that some secrets are more dangerous than others. 3 weeks into their marriage, Sophia discovered that living with Ryan Blackstone was like sharing space with a beautiful, dangerous storm. His penthouse apartment occupied the top 2 floors of a downtown high-rise. All clean lines and expensive art that felt more like a museum than a home. It settled into a careful routine. Ryan left for the office before dawn, returned after dark, and they shared exactly one meal together each week for the sake of appearances. The media had eaten up their whirlwind romance story, painting Ryan as the reformed playboy who'd found love with his devoted assistant, but tonight felt different. Ryan stood in the kitchen wearing dark jeans and a black sweater, his usual armor, of expensive suits replaced by something softer, more human. He was cooking, actually cooking, the scent of garlic and wine filling the air between them. "You don't have to do this," Sophia said from the doorway, feeling awkward in her own silk pajamas. They'd been a wedding gift from Ryan's assistant, part of the new wardrobe that came with being Mrs. Blackstone. Maybe I want to. He glanced over his shoulder, and something in his green eyes made her pulse quicken. Besides, we should probably know something about each other beyond favorite coffee orders and schedule preferences. Over dinner, the careful walls they'd built began to crack. Ryan told her about growing up in his father's shadow, about the pressure to be perfect, about the nightmares he still had about finding his father dead at his desk. Sophia found herself sharing stories about her childhood, about her mother's strength, about the dreams she'd put on hold to take care of the people she loved. "What did you want to be?" Ryan asked, refilling her wine glass. "Before all this?" "A teacher. Elementary school." She smiled at the memory. "I wanted to be the teacher who made learning magic, who helped kids believe they could do anything. Why didn't you?" "Life happened. Mom got sick the first time when I was in college. I dropped out to take care of her and never went back." She took a sip of wine, the expensive vintage warming her throat. Some dreams have expiration dates. Ryan was quiet for a moment, studying her face in the candlelight. Maybe some dreams just need a different timeline, the air between them crackled with something dangerous, something that wasn't supposed to be part of their business arrangement. When Ryan reached across the table and touched her hand, Sophia felt her carefully constructed walls tremble. "This isn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "I know." His thumb traced across her knuckles, sending sparks up her arm. The kiss was inevitable, soft at first, then desperate, as to years of tension and attraction exploded between them. Sophia knew she was breaking every rule of their agreement, knew she was risking everything. But Ryan's hands in her hair and his mouth on hers made rational thought impossible. They made love that night with a hunger that surprised them both, as if they'd been starving without realizing it. Afterward, lying in Ryan's bed with her head on his chest, Sophia let herself believe that maybe their fake marriage could become something real. She should have known better. The next morning, she woke to the sound of Ryan's voice coming from his study. The door was cracked open, and she could hear him talking on the phone as she padded past in her robe. "The Morrison deal is as good as done," Ryan was saying, his voice carrying that familiar business tone. "The marriage angle worked perfectly. He's completely convinced I'm a stable family man now." Sophia froze in the hallway, her heart beginning to pound. "James, there won't be any complications. She's exactly what I needed. Desperate enough to agree to anything, and naive enough to think this is real." Ryan's laugh was cold. Nothing. Like the man who'd held her so tenderly just hours before. 2 years, then a quiet divorce. She gets her money, I get Morrison's network, everyone wins. What about the assistant? Any chance she caused problems? Sophia? Ryan's voice was dismissive. "She's falling for me exactly like I planned. Last night, she practically melted in my arms. By the time this is over, she'll be so grateful for the money and the experience of playing house with a billionaire that she won't cause any trouble." The words hit Sophia like physical blows. Every touch, every kiss, every moment of connection had been calculated, planned, performed. She was just another business transaction, another deal to be managed and closed. She stumbled back to the bedroom on shaking legs, her chest tight with humiliation and betrayal. The silk nightgown that had made her feel beautiful now felt like a costume, a prop in Ryan's elaborate performance. 20 minutes later, Ryan appeared in the doorway with coffee and croissants, playing the part of the attentive new husband. "Good morning, beautiful." His smile was perfect, practiced. "I thought we could have breakfast together before I head to the office." Sophia looked at him, this stranger wearing her husband's face, felt something inside her crystallize into cold, hard resolve. "That sounds wonderful," she said, matching his smile with one of her own. After all, we need to keep up appearances, don't we? If Ryan noticed the edge in her voice, he didn't show it. But as he leaned down to kiss her cheek, Sophia was all ready. Planning her next move, Ryan Blackstone thought he was playing chess while she played checkers. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The Morrison Industries gala was supposed to be Ryan's moment of triumph. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the kind of wealth that made empires. Sophia stood beside her husband in a midnight blue gown that cost more than most people's cars, playing her role perfectly. She'd spent 2 weeks since discovering Ryan's betrayal, preparing for this night. 2 weeks of research, phone calls, and careful planning. 2 weeks of pretending everything was normal while her heart turned to ice. Harold Morrison approached them near the champagne fountain, a distinguished man in his 70s, with shrewd eyes and a politician's smile. "Ryan, my boy, this must be the lovely Sophia I've heard so much about. Mr. Morrison, such a pleasure." Sophia extended her hand with a smile that would have made any actress proud. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. The pleasure is all mine. Now I have to say marriage suits you, Ryan. There's something different about you, more settled, more trustworthy." Ryan's arm tightened around Sophia's waist, his smile brilliant and false. "Sophia has changed everything for me, sir. She's made me see what really matters in life." "That's exactly what I like to hear." Morrison's eyes twinkled. "Family men understand commitment, understand loyalty. Those are the kind of partners Morrison Industries wants to work with." As the old man walked away to greet other guests, Ryan leaned down to whisper in Sophia's ear, "Perfect. He's completely sold on us. The contract signing is just a formality." "Now I'm so glad I could help," Sophia replied sweetly, her voice carrying just enough warmth to sound genuine. But across the ballroom she caught sight of a familiar face. James Parker, Ryan's lawyer and best friend, the man she'd heard on the phone that first day when this all began. The man she'd called 3 days ago with a very interesting proposition. The evening progressed like a carefully choreographed dance. Sophia charmed Morrison's wife, laughed at his jokes, and played the devoted wife so convincingly that she almost fooled herself. But as the night wore on, she felt Ryan's growing confidence, his certainty that he'd won. At 11 p.m., Morrison called for everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make." The ballroom fell silent. "After careful consideration, Morrison Industries has decided to award our exclusive West Coast manufacturing contract to Blackstone Industries, Ateta." The applause was thunderous. Ryan's face lit up with triumph, his grip on Sophia's hand almost painful in his excitement. $50 million.
Ow!
The deal that would make his career, that would prove to everyone he was worthy of his father's legacy. However, Morrison continued, raising his hand for silence, "I want everyone to know that this decision wasn't just about numbers or proposals. It was about character. It's about finding a partner who understands the value of family, of commitment, of honesty." Ryan beamed, accepting congratulations from the crowd around them. But Sophia noticed the way Morrison's eyes lingered on her, something knowing in his expression. "Which is why," Morrison said, his voice carrying clearly across the ballroom, "I was so disappointed to learn about the true nature of Mr. Blackstone's marriage." The silence that fell was deafening. Ryan's face went white, his hand dropping. From Sophia's waist, as if she'd burned him, Morrison pulled a manila envelope from his jacket. "Anonymous tip, delivered to my office yesterday. Bank records showing large payments to Mrs. Blackstone. Recorded phone conversations discussing the arrangement. Even a copy of the marriage contract with its rather clinical terms." Sophia felt every eye in the room turn to them. The whispers started like a tide, growing louder with each passing second. Fake marriage, contract wife, business arrangement. "Mr. Morrison." Ryan's voice was strained, desperate. "I can explain. There's nothing to explain, son. You thought you could manipulate an old man's values for your own gain? You thought marriage was just another business transaction to be negotiated and closed?" Morrison's voice was heavy with disappointment. "Morrison Industries will be awarding the contract to Henderson and Associates instead." The crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzing with scandal and speculation. Ryan stood frozen, watching his empire crumble in real time. The deal he'd sacrificed everything for gone, his reputation destroyed, his father's legacy tainted by his own greed. "How?" he whispered, finally turning to look at Sophia.
Is she?
Met his gaze steadily, her heart breaking despite everything he'd done to her. "You taught me well, Ryan. Marriage has been a business arrangement for centuries. I just learned to be better at business than you. You destroyed everything. You destroyed yourself." She pulled off her wedding ring and set it on the nearby table. "You had everything you needed to make this real. A woman who cared about you, who believed in you, but you couldn't see past your own manipulation." Ryan's green eyes filled with something that might have been regret, might have been loss. Sophia ... The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. The prenup ensures. You keep your assets, and I keep mine. She picked up her purse, her hands steady, despite the chaos around them. "My mother's treatment is paid for, and I have enough to finish my degree. I'm going to be a teacher, Ryan. I'm going to help kids believe they can be anything they want to be." As she walked toward the ballroom exit, Ryan called after her one last time. "Was any of it real?" That night, what we shared. Sophia paused in the doorway, looking back at the man who could have been everything if he'd just chosen to see her as more than a transaction. "It was real for me," she said quietly. "That was the problem." 6 months later, Sophia stood in front of her first classroom, watching 25 eager third graders file in for the first day of school. Her mother, healthy and vibrant again, had helped her set up the bulletin boards and organize the learning centers. She'd kept her promise to herself and to the scared, desperate woman she'd been in Ryan's office that day. She'd finished her degree, gotten her teaching certificate, and started the life she'd always dreamed of. Sometimes late at night, she'd wondered if Ryan had learned anything from their time together. If he'd found a way to build something real instead of just acquiring and manipulating. But mostly, she focused on the future, on the children who looked at her with trust and possibility in their eyes. Love, she'd learned, couldn't be contracted or negotiated, could only be given freely without guarantees or escape clauses. And someday, when she was ready, she would give it to someone who understood that the most valuable things in life were the ones that couldn't be bought. Asterisk, don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and share to spread kindness. The end.